Hello and welcome to our Access MBA live event with the HEC Paris Executive MBA. My name is Cecilia with Access MBA, and today I have with me Marie Simonsen, who is Head of Executive MBA Development, and Alexandre Pelletier, who's Head of Innovation at Tata Communications and a current student of the program. We will be here today to speak during this 1-hour live Q&A session, and we have many questions today, so we're going to get started right away, and I'll give the seat over to Alexandre. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having us.
Okay, so I'm going to start with my first question, and my first question is for Marie. What sets the HEC Paris EMBA apart from other executive programs, and what are the highlights of the HEC EMBA?
Well, the HEC Executive MBA program has a very long history, actually. It started off 84 years ago with the objective of training senior executives in strategic decision-making processes and also to train them in leadership. So this objective has remained the same, even though the program has evolved tremendously over this long period. It's a living program, if I can put it like that, that is continuously innovating and also delivering new methods and content delivery. So to maybe emphasize the two main focus areas in the program, it is still strategy and leadership, and this is how we distinguish ourselves from the competition. It's very important to us that our participants do have significant experience to be able to relate to these topics. Mm-hmm. So the average age on the program is 39, mm-hmm. with 15 years of professional experience on an average. And these participants, they hail from all over the world. We have 35 nationalities on the program. So it's a senior program with people from very various sectors of activities and countries. Okay. Now, we also deliver this program in China and in Qatar, which gives our participants the opportunity to go for international mobility. And through the majors, so these specialized modules in the program, our participants are able to benefit from the research and also the faculty of our partner institutions, which are, among the best universities and schools around the world. Mm-hmm.
So you actually have campuses globally. You mentioned
Absolutely.
Qatar. Are there any other campuses?
Yeah, we do also have our tracks in China, in Shanghai and Beijing. Mm-hmm. So it's possible for our participants to choose some of the modules and do international mobility, mm-hmm. to mix with the participants on these different tracks and also to be in a different social and cultural environment. And of course, for networking purposes, this is very interesting. Mm.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm actually going to ask my next question to Alexandre. Thank you for joining us.
My pleasure.
Can you tell us a little bit about your background and why you wanted to do an EMBA?
Well, yeah, so I'm now 38 years old, and I studied management undergraduate level in Canada about 16 years ago when I finished school. And over the course of my career, I've worked different roles, different companies, worked in management consulting, work for the telecom operator that I currently work for in different roles: sales, business development, product management. And at some point I felt there was a sort of a glass ceiling above me. I didn't know how to get to the next level. I wanted to refresh my knowledge. I wanted to open up new perspectives. I felt I was somewhat entrepreneurial. I wanted to check that. And I felt it was the right time for me to, maybe it's a midlife crisis thing, but I felt it was the right time to acquire new skills, new knowledge, and develop and see what develop new options for my future career. So that's when I thought the Executive MBA was the right time to get there.
Okay, thank you very much. And how did you end up making the choice for HEC when you chose your MBA?
Well, I looked at several schools. I looked at the top 3, Chicago Booth, INSEAD, and HEC, and all 3 are reputable institutions. There were several reasons for me to select HEC. One is I came from an undergrad background with a North American institution, so I knew what it would look like. I wanted to get a bit of the French touch. I've lived in France for 15 years. I also wanted to make sure I was going in a program that was not brand new, and that was the case with HEC. As Marie said, it's been going on for 80 years, and there's a big alumni population, and to me that was quite reassuring. One thing too that's quite practical is at some point you gain an awful lot from the people that you study with, and going to Chicago or going to Fontainebleau, living in Paris, not far from the campus, to me it was important to be close to the campus, close to the people that I'd be dealing with, that I'd be studying with, in order to gain the most out of the network. So there are also practical implications that you got to take into account, and that was one of them.
Okay, great. And now I'm going to ask Marie the next question. So since Alexandre's in the program, what do you look for in your candidates? What makes an ideal candidate for you for your HEC EMBA?
Well, an ideal candidate for us is a person who has significant experience. As I said initially, I mean, on an average, our participants do have 15 years of professional experience, so it's very important to bring into the program experience, okay? And also an international outlook and a very strong desire to take on executive responsibilities with his or her firm, okay? So, and I think it's also very important to be curious and open-minded and willing to share the experience because the pedagogical approach in the program is based on teamwork, and it's very important to recruit participants who come in with the willingness to share and challenge the other participants, and also with the capability of being challenged. And I think that really that requires maturity and experience, because in the end of the day 50% you will learn will come from the other participants. It's a very interactive program, and all the case studies that our participants will go through, on an average 50 case studies, is a way also to challenge your current beliefs with people who have very different opinions and experiences than yourself. So this is really key in the learning process in the program, and maybe Alexandre has something to add on this point.
To me, it's been, I mean, the richness of the program is really the other participants, and that's really something I was looking for, is a variety. And for me, as I want to take on an exec MBA and get out of my comfort zone, I definitely did, because you end up working with people that are, I've been mostly in sales, business development, product management, a bit of strategic consulting, but I'd never worked with people working in industrial sectors. I'd never worked with CFOs, CIOs a little, but there's people with such a diverse background, diverse experience. When you work in teams, it can be tedious, it can be difficult, but that's what getting out of your comfort zone is about. It also, you learn an awful lot from the others. It's amazing how much I've learned from the different people that I've been dealing with in the different groups. The fact that we rotate groups is also an opportunity for me to get exposed to different people, different perspectives. And you really test your leadership skills in these cases, because these groups are difficult to manage sometimes. And you really see who wants to take leadership. You obviously want to take leadership, everybody does. And what you learn in class, you apply right away, and what you learn in class is specifically around the leadership. You apply directly in case studies, and that's extremely wealthy from my experience perspective.
Great. So you mentioned leadership skills. Would you say that you also have sharpened your strategic thinking, and can you give us some examples, maybe? Well,
definitely, because we all think we have a view of how to manage strategy, and even me having been in a strategy consulting firm. It's a big refresh, just going back to the different concepts. The things that I've learned 17 years ago in undergrad school, first I didn't have the maturity, now I have the maturity and the experience to actually relate and confront the material, the academic material with my experience and with the other people's experience. Also, things have changed. I mean, business education evolves, and what you learned 20 years ago has completely changed. Poulter was once the king of strategy and how you define, how you analyze a firm. This has evolved, and I've come to learn that here at HEC. There's a lot of new concepts that were brought to my attention that I was not really aware of, and that I've actually applied in my job.
Okay, thank you very much. My next question is going to be also for you, Alexander. So which major did you choose?
Well, I chose entrepreneurship and innovation. And that's also one, to get back to why I chose HEC. The fact that that major was offered was also a critical decision point for me, because it was a critical decision factor, because I've always been very keen on innovation, and a lot of people are, right? But how do you manage innovation in a company? How do you innovate? Are you really an entrepreneur, an intrapreneur within the corporation? So you get to learn a lot of that through that program, and that major to me was essential, and it's really the major building block for me in the success of this EMBA. It's actually allowed me to change job within my company through the course of that EMBA. Now running innovation in my firm, so everything that I've learned in a classroom, I apply it directly to my job. So that major has been absolutely fantastic for me in terms of knowledge, skill sets that I've acquired, but also career transition within my firm.
Okay, great. And can you tell us a little bit about your individual project, your capstone project?
So the capstone is actually not related to my firm. When I decided to take on the EMBA, it was very much a personal project, and my firm was not so sure. So they said, "Okay, do it." They gave me the time, but I had to, I self-financed my EMBA, and I had a project in the back of my mind running for several years to launch a startup in the e-health sector. So healthcare 2.0 was a big topic for me, quite interesting. So the capstone was actually, and that's also one thing that I very much like about the program at HEC, is that you have the opportunity to work throughout the year on a specific project, and that project is something I have at heart. And it's working on the development of a startup in that field that I'm very interested in, and it's given me the opportunity to deeply research it and apply all the different skills, the different tools that I've learned at HEC to that project. And I'm currently in the final stretch of writing my capstone project.
Great. So you spoke about your company. So how did you actually get support from your company? Because I imagine your company is supporting your decision. Can you tell us about that?
Right. So at first they were a bit skeptical. They thought, you know what, he's taking an EMBA. He probably wants to leave us. And that's quite common. I think it was the case for a lot of the people in my cohort. So they first said, "Okay, take the time, do it," but they were not that interested in it at first. But then they figured out over time that I had changed, and I think this EMBA has changed me throughout. So it doesn't change you afterwards; it changes you within, while you're taking it, and they've realized it. And at first, they didn't want to give me any financial support because that was not company policy. And suddenly they said, "You know what? It's interesting." They've actually moved me to a different position. They've given me a new opportunity to work much more with the senior management of the company, with the leadership of the company, and I've been exposed to much more senior people who got interested in me. And suddenly you have the firm coming back to me saying, "Hey, how much is the EMBA? How much does it cost you? Maybe we can support you." So they won't fully fund me, but they've actually now agreed that they've seen the change over the past year and a half in the way that I behave and my posture in the company. I feel it myself, but they definitely see it, and they tell me. So it's actually changed the relationship from, hey, he's taking an EMBA, we like him, so let's give him a bit of time, let's give him some slack to do it, but we won't fund it, to let's promote him, let's give him a better job, and let's see if we can financially support him, even though it's not really company policy.
Great. My next question is a little bit different, so I'm going to ask Marie. Can you tell us a little bit about the HEC faculty?
Sure. The HEC faculty is a world-renowned faculty, and we have more than 100 permanent faculty who's dedicated to research and teaching materials, and then we have more than 100 affiliated professors who have both teaching and professional skills, and also around 40 visiting professors. So in terms of cultural representation, 60% are international, and we have approximately 29 different nationalities within the faculty at HEC. I think it's very important when you look at an institution to look at institutions that actually do research, because it's all about concepts, and it's very important to also be interested in future trends. not only a toolbox of best practices that you can read books about, but it's very important when you do an executive MBA to have access to such material, which is the case here at HEC.
Could you give us some examples perhaps of how you are applying future trends at HEC?
Sure. Now, I think that in terms of development, we are very much looking at strategic partners around the world. We're very interested in the emerging markets and also, of course, the digital transformation of businesses. And this is also reflected in the Executive MBA through our different majors. So Alexandre already mentioned the different majors and the major he chose. We offer 8 different majors in different topics, and these are typically reflections of future trends in the market. So reinventing business for emerging markets, for instance, digital transformation of businesses as well, are just some examples of that. And also to mention the shares we have. This is also very important, that we have 19 shares and specialized centers. So these are companies financing research for a certain topic within the company. So that can be in the energy field, for instance.
Great. And would you say that your global locations are also a reflection on this focus on emerging markets?
Absolutely.
Yep.
Absolutely. We are, as you already know, already based in China and in Qatar, but in terms of strategic partners on the institutional level, we are really worldwide. And our representation in Africa is getting more and more important. We are currently launching a program in Western Africa, in the Ivory Coast, in January, which is not an executive MBA, but it's a shorter program for people who would like to take the leadership of a business unit. And this is the first experience for us in this part of the world, to launch an open enrollment program in Western Africa. So it's very exciting.
Great. My next question is back to Alexander. What do you believe is the added value of an executive MBA today in the business world?
It's hard to tell because people will ask you about ROI, so you're spending this much money, how are you going to make it up to? It's very, the added value, I mean, for me personally, the way I see it is, it's changed me. It's changed my posture. And being 38, I know I have roughly 30 years more, 30 more years to spend at work. And, I'm bringing my company and I'm bringing, any potential future employer a new set of skills, a fresh set of skills, a fresh set of knowledge, perspectives, views on the business world. My feeling is I'm bringing an awful lot of value to the company in terms of applying those directly and supporting the company with those new skills. It's hard to quantify, what the payback will be. It's almost impossible, I'd say. For me, it's changed my way of working. It's changed my it's added so many skills to what I knew how to do and what I thought I knew how to do that I know how to do much better today. The fact that it's transformed me is completely, I feel the value just from the fact that it's actually completely transformed the way that I interact with the senior management in the company, the way I interact with external stakeholders. It's built up my confidence, and it's built up the trust that I will have a great career 30 years ahead of me, which was probably not the case, quite honestly, 2 years ago when I was contemplating the idea of doing an EMBA. I felt I was stuck somewhere, and now I feel the work, it's wide open. So it's taught me how to dare to go to my senior management, expose my views, have tough interactions with them, but with all the knowledge and the confidence that I've come to build over here, it's actually bringing back value to the company, because I think they see it just from from the quality of the reasoning and my judgment on their decisions. So I'm a much better challenger with my senior management now than I was in the past.
Okay, great. We actually have some questions because we are live and this is interactive. So we have some questions from the audience on the internet. And this one is from Marie. So it says, can you please tell me about the profile and diversity of the students in the program? Can you tell us a little bit about more who goes to school with Alexander?
Sure. Now, as I said initially, it's a program that attracts senior managers and executives. So we are among the most senior on the market, with an average age of 39 and 15 years of professional experience, as already mentioned. Now, for the different intakes, we have different profiles. It depends really what you want. We do have an intake starting on January 14th, 2015, which is our English modular intake, which is our most international track, where we have around 30 different nationalities. In terms of profiles, as I also said, it's very diverse in terms of industry and sectors of activities represented. And I think also that is one of the competitive advantages at HEC, that we don't have a majority of engineers, for instance, or people from the finance sector. It's very, very diverse. So we do have people coming from multinationals, as we do have people who have created their own company, they have their own startup. I mean, it's very, very varied. And I think that is absolutely also a very interesting part when it comes to the exchanges that will take place in the program after.
And Alexander, would you have anything to add to that about the diversity that you see with other participants?
So I've seen this across the majors with lots of international students. The cohort that I was part of was actually 1 day a week, so it's Tuesdays in Paris, so mostly French people. There were only a few foreigners, if I include myself as a Canadian. But it was mostly French. However, the diversity came from people aged 35 to 51, people working director of HR, CFOs, people having launched their own companies, people running several different companies, people working for very, very large companies, and people working for startups. So the diversity is right there. The diversity is also, we had a cohort of 30% of women, so that was quite interesting as well, just to have a different viewpoint on the management style. And when you get into the majors, you then mix with other tracks, and you have people coming from Qatar, from China, from there were lots of Africans as well in the track I was following at Babson College recently. So it was interesting to get their viewpoint, to see how they run their business, how they manage people, how they lead, and you get so much out of that, just mixing with the people, so embracing. Testing them, against their views, and testing your own views of the business. You're used to a certain role or a certain industry. In my case, I've been in telecoms for a long time. It's great to be able to mix with people from different industries and see how they do it in their own sector.
Okay, thank you. My next question is also from the internet. It ties into that. It's from Russia, and this person asks, when are classes held? What is the schedule, and how often should I be on campus?
Well, for the January intake, you have 6 8-day modules every second month. And in addition to that, you also have the 2 weeks of the major. So 1 week in May and 1 week in October, where the participant will go to the seminars, either in France or abroad, depending on the major the participant will choose. Okay? So that is for the English modular intake, which will be the most appropriate for someone living in Russia. And the length of the program is approximately 14 months.
Okay, great. And I have one other question from the internet. And I don't know if this actually even applies for your Executive MBA. They're asking, is there a minimum GMAT score I need to be admitted? Do you look at the GMAT? Is that something that you...
It's not mandatory, actually. It is for our full-time MBA, but not for our Executive MBA. We do have an internal management test, which is a case study that can replace the GMAT. So you have to do either one or the other. The GMAT, if you do the GMAT, we expect a score higher than 680. For the internal management test is very different because it's a case study. So we will rather look at your analytical skills, your senior executive point of view, and also your maturity. Okay.
Okay. Sounds great. And I have one other question right now from the internet. Do you offer any scholarships for candidates coming from outside of Europe?
We have 2 scholarships. So we have one for people who are working for NGOs, and we have another scholarships for entrepreneurs. So these are currently the scholarships we offer on the Executive MBA.
Okay. Great. And now I have another question for Alexandre, getting back to my questions. How did you manage actually the workload? Because you're doing an Executive MBA and you're also working, I imagine, full-time with a busy job and family life. So how does that impact your life?
Yeah, I cannot thank enough my wife for how supportive she's been, as well as my children, because they got 2 young kids. It's a heavy workload. I mean, make no mistake, it's a heavy investment on the personal front. The financial investment pales in comparison with the personal investment. Now, it's worth every single hour I've spent on it. But I have a very busy professional life, travel an awful lot, internationally all over the place, working for an Indian firm with people in the US, etc. So I keep traveling all the time, and it's very difficult to manage. But I've made it through. You actually learn how to work better, faster. I think my ability now I've been basically managing 2 full-time jobs for the past 18 months. That's what's really happened to me when I look back. And I can say I'm looking forward to getting back to a normal life, but it's true that your evenings, your weekends are affected. Vacation time is affected as well. It's worth every single hour that I haven't spent with my family. I'll make it back to them. But it's been worth it every step of the way because it's so enriching. You start reading things, you have your mandatory readings, but then you want to dig deeper. It's just an invitation to learning and learning and learning. The time you spend with the teams is amazing because you get all those viewpoints. So you've got fantastic debates over a case study. It takes time, but you need to prepare for it. You need to make sure your family is prepared for it. They'll see you change. I think they've seen me change. What I'm looking forward to is when I'm done is what am I going to do with all that free time? Because now I've learned how to better delegate as well because I was forced to. And the program has taught me that, but just the time constraint has forced me to do that better. And I've also become a more efficient manager just from the constraints of time that an EMBA imposes. So it's not impossible. You just stretch yourself. It's like if you're used to running 10Ks, one day you run a marathon, the next day you run an ultra marathon. You just need to get ready for it. You just need to prepare for it. But you can do it. Everybody can do it. You just need to make sure your family is aware that, yes, it has there are some constraints. Okay.
Great. Thank you very much. I have another question from our live stream. The question is about career services. So for someone maybe different, unlike Alexandre, who was looking for new opportunities after the MBA, can you tell us about your career services center?
Actually, we do have a career service center within the Alumni Association. So they do provide these kind of services and also coaching. Okay. Within the Executive MBA, we have also now introduced what we call the professional development track, which is a set of 8 webinars that are also partly focusing on career development. Okay. So this is something that we take very seriously in the Executive MBA because we know that a lot of people also want to do this program in order to change, okay, their lives, their professional career. So this is something that has now been included in the professional development track in the program. So as an example, I can mention one of our speakers on this webinar, who is Dory Clark. She does some webinars on personal development. They're very interesting.
Maybe to add to this, I've actually seen some people in my cohort are in transition and looking for a job. It's amazing to see the power of the network within the cohort. So if someone's looking for a job, the amount of help drives right through. It's just the support, getting contacts, organizing interviews with people, so really helping them. And then there's the whole HEC alumni that I've seen working for some, where they just go out there, have been able to get in touch with people that have, currently hold a job, are looking for people, and being an HEC alumni actually adds weight when you're looking for a job. So, so there is, aside from the career services, just to say that within the students, there's an awful lot of support for those that are in transition, and the alumni network definitely helps, because I've seen some actually bounce back thanks to the alumni network. So it does work.
Great. And again, from our live stream is, hi, can I ask you what percentage of your alumni changed job after the EMBA?
Oh, actually, just to give another figure before that, 25% actually create their own company. It's a very interesting figure, I think. In terms of job change, it's approximately 70%.
70%.
Yeah,
So very,
it's
very high.
very high.
Okay, great. And then one more from the web now. How is the management test provided? Is it online or on campus?
On campus. So the selection process will take place in several steps. There will be a pre-selection interview with the program advisor to spend some time with the candidate to discuss his or her profile, the professional project of the candidate, and then if the person is encouraged to apply to the program, there will be an application file, and then the meeting with the selection committee. And at this last moment in the process, there will be the management test on campus.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
So now I'll get back to what you were saying about the network, or the HEC network. So what about for someone who's coming from abroad? Is the HEC network really international? How is the network now international? Can you tell us a little bit more about it?
Well, the HEC network now has 50,000 alumni, which is a lot, and it's a very active network, as Alexander said. People do feel very, I would say, loyal to the network, and being contacted by an HEC alum is almost the feel of giving something back to the institution. So that is the feedback I've gotten from alumni. Now, also to say that it's a powerful network with a lot of famous and powerful people as well. HEC Paris is ranked #1 in Europe and 4th worldwide for CEO or alumni holding CEO positions in the Fortune Global 500. So it's just to give you an idea of the strength of the network. But I think, again, it's a network where people are loyal to each other, and where there are a lot of activities as well organized by the Alumni Association. Approximately 1,000 conferences and events per year, which is a lot. So you can actually keep yourself busy by only going to these conferences, which is obviously very difficult for alumni. But I mean, it's a very active network.
Okay. Alexander, anything to add to what Marie said about the network?
I've witnessed it, for real. So really, if you reach out to an HEC alum, they'll open the door. You'll have the meeting. It's probably something you couldn't have if you don't have it would have been harder to have if you didn't have the HEC tag. So it does help. We've seen it.
Okay. One more question from the internet. This one is from Latin America. Is it possible for someone from Latin America to join the Executive HEC program?
Of course. I mean, we have had examples of that many times in the past. People from Latin America coming to join the program. From other continents as well. I mean, it's a format, the format I already mentioned, the 8 consecutive days that actually allow people who come from very far away to fly in for the modules. It is possible. We have had participants flying in from Australia for the modules. Obviously, it adds another difficulty to the program, which is already, as Alexander said, very complex. But it's absolutely possible, and we see it all the time. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, I think I have one more question that's coming in from the internet. Can you tell us about the other majors that you have on the program? Because you mentioned 8,
Yeah.
but can we go through actually all of the different majors?
Of course. So we have some specialized majors and more general majors. So for the specialized ones, we have a major in luxury, and this is a partnership we have with Bocconi in Milan. Okay. So 1 week takes place in Paris and 1 week in Milan. This is a major that requires experience in the sector. Okay, so it's really targeting those who are either creating their own luxury brand or taking on important responsibilities for a luxury brand. Okay, then we have the energy major, which is also quite specialized and requires also experience in the field. 1 week in Paris with IFP, the French Institute of Petrol, and 1 week in Qatar, in Doha, with the Total share. I mentioned that we have many shares at HEC, and one of them is with Total in Qatar. We have also another one, specialized in aviation and aerospace. This is 1 week with the Airbus Academy in Toulouse, and the other week in Canada, actually, with McGill. Okay, and for the more general ones, these are open to all our EMBA participants. So the one that Alexander did, Entrepreneurship and Innovation, 1 week in Paris and 1 week in the United States with Babson College in Boston. It's a very popular major and attracts a lot of participants each year. And we also have another one which is well, a little bit similar to this one, but really targeting those who would like to create their own company. And it's called Creating Your Own Business Project. So as the name indicates, is really to come on board with a business idea and to test it in the program. So 1 week in Paris and the second week at Babson College. Then you have innovation and differentiation through services. We have 1 week now in Singapore and 1 week in Orlando. Okay, and we're currently negotiating with the institutions that will receive us there. And then digital transformation of businesses, 1 week in Paris and second week in the United States. Currently also negotiating with the partner that will be hosting the participants there. And the last one, reinventing business for emerging markets, where we have 1 week in South Africa with Cape Town Graduate School of Business, and 1 week in India with the Technological Management Institute of Bangalore. So, I mean, again, it's this last major is obviously also, as all the others, very interesting and attracts very curious people, I would say.
And that actually ties in a little bit to my next question from the net. Which of the majors is more suitable for executives or managers with IT backgrounds and interests?
Well, I would say that a major really depends where you want to go in the future and not necessarily what you've done. Because doing an executive MBA, as Alexander said, is to get out of your comfort zone in many ways. And I think the choice of the major should reflect that point. Don't go in necessarily for what you know. Go for what you're interested by and where you want to go in the future.
And do you actually have to specialize, or is that required to take a specialization? Or?
Well, the specialized majors are really targeting those who have experience in these sectors of activities. For the other majors, they're very general, so they're not really well specialized in that sense. They're more touching a certain topic that can be applied in any business strategy, I would say.
But you definitely have to choose one major.
Absolutely. So each participant needs to choose one major, and only one. It will take place over 2 weeks. And during these 2 weeks, they will be with participants from all the other tracks. So the 4 tracks in Paris, our track in China, and our track in Qatar. So again, I mean, it's a moment in the program where the participants will go out from the cohort and mix with all the other participants who have chosen the same major as themselves. So it's a great networking opportunity, obviously.
Okay, great. My next question is from the web for Alexander. It is, did Alexander take the GMAT or the internal test, and how difficult was it?
I took the internal test, and it was. I took the GMAT years ago, but it, you know, the 5-year had passed. So I took the internal test. You know, it's just common business sense. If you're a senior executive, you've been dealing with case studies, so suddenly you have a case study in front of you that has nothing to do with your industry. Working in telecom, and suddenly you had a case study on Renault and electric vehicles. It's about demonstrating your ability to analyze the data that's put in front of you and provide strategic recommendations. It's things that we do on the job day in, day out, right? So you suddenly have to do it across a different industry. It's random. I didn't know what to expect. I just use my skills against those. So I wouldn't say it's difficult. I think it's a good way for the school to test your business acumen and your ability to analyze data and provide strategic recommendations against that. But it doesn't take you, you don't need to be a mathematician. It's read any business article, figure out the questions that could be in the background. That's pretty much what it is.
Okay, thanks. My next question is going to be actually for both of you. It's what are the differences between HEC Paris as a European MBA and someone who might be considering, for example, an American MBA? Can you talk about North American and European differences, perhaps, if there are any?
I think, well, as I said initially, this is a program with a very long history. Okay, so it started, 84 years ago. That's a long time. With the objective of training executives in taking strategic decisions. And I think this might be the main difference with the more North American Executive MBA that might be more influenced by a full-time MBA, because they have a very strong tradition in MBAs in North America, and maybe less, at least not that long tradition with executive MBAs. So at least for this program, it's not inspired by a full-time MBA. It was really conceived as a training program for executives. And I think, well, to keep it simple, that is maybe the biggest difference.
Great.
Yeah, they're probably, it's hard to say. To me, it's having gone through undergrad education in North America, in McGill, I wanted to get a bit of a French touch. I think the way that things are taught here, you get the same sort of content. The professors are equally good. The way that content may be delivered is sometimes has that French touch that that is, I think, quite interesting. There are different sensibilities. So it's probably, I would be tempted to think that a North American university would have a more formatted way of delivering the content. The French or European touch is probably adds something to it. I did like it. I did enjoy it. Some professors will be more versing towards the North American way of doing things. You have more European professors here as well that will do things their own way. The content gets to you. There's a lot of fun in the class. The good jokers as well. It's not only the Americans. And you have the international exposure. You're in the heart of Europe. So you have a lot of international students. I'm not sure about the North American universities, more likely to be American-prone and have American students. So you get that cultural diversity, that French touch, that adds a bit of juice to it. But from a content perspective and from the academics, it's about the same thing, I'd say.
Great. I'm just going to remind our web listeners that you can send your questions to live@accessmba.com, so we can also ask your questions. I have one more question right now, and it's, are there differences between doing the program out of the Qatar campus and the Shanghai campus? What would that change for the actual content?
Well, the content is the same, and the professors are also the same. Now, the difference is obviously the cultural context and the participants, because they are recruited locally. So in Qatar, you have 50% in the current cohort of Qatari, and the other 50% will be expatriates and people coming from that region. Okay, so obviously in France you will have a much higher European representation, and in China the Asian representation. So the differences between the tracks are more reflected in the cultural representations of the participants. Now, for what the level of the participants are concerned, it's the same in these different tracks, because of course with international mobility we have to have the same level and the same level of experience in order to, of course, allow the exchanges on, yeah. So, but again, it's something that we really encourage, because I think going for the international mobility will allow you to build a network. For example, in Qatar, if you have an idea of creating a business in this geographical zone, it's always interesting to build a network there. And through the participants in the program, that is absolutely possible. Or likewise in China.
Okay, great. This question is coming from an email from Jessica Aziz. She says, what about the fees? Three-part question. What about the fees? What is the highest percentage of scholarship that an applicant can take? And what do you look for in an application for a scholarship?
Yeah. Now, the fees, it's around 64,000 euros. This does not include international flights nor housing on the campus. And for the scholarship, I would say the highest percentage you can get is actually 20% of the pedagogical fees. Okay. Now we look for candidates who are motivated, who have a coherent professional project in line with the scholarship application. So for the entrepreneurship scholarship, for instance, it must be someone who have already a very concrete business idea, or who have already created their own company. Okay, so it must be, of course, someone who has already developed something. For the NGO, it must be someone who has already significant experience working for an NGO, and his professional project or her professional project with an executive MBA must also be in that direction. Okay.
Great, thanks. I have one other web question now. How big are the executive classes? What about the class size? Can you tell us?
Approximately 50 participants per intake, but this can be this can change. I mean, but on an average, it's 50 participants per class.
Okay. And is it possible for someone to get in touch with Alexandre, or to get in touch with an alumni before they decide to apply?
Yeah, after the interview with the program advisor, this person can put the candidate in contact with current participants or alumni who have a similar profile. So the person can exchange with the alumni before applying, of course. And we also organize information sessions on a monthly basis in Paris and also around the world in terms of city missions and also master classes. And this is a great occasion to meet with HEC and representatives from the school and also alumni. I'm sorry.
One more question from another candidate. Do you see an increase in applications from some region, and how do you keep a balance in the classroom?
Yeah. Now, we have seen an increase from Western Africa, actually, because we have started to do more events in the region, and also with the opening of the program in the Ivory Coast. This has shown a real interest for our programs. Now, obviously, it's important to keep a certain balance in terms of cultural representation. So, again, we do have a very selective selection process where we will rather look at the experience and level of the candidate rather than his nationality. We will not have any form of discrimination for what the cultural representation is concerned, or the whether it's a female or a male candidate. So, but actually up until now, we've managed to have a quite well balanced program in terms of participants.
Okay, great. One more question from the net. How important are the test results when you're evaluating the application for admission? How important are the tests? Like, is that part of a whole? What are other things that are part of the...
Well, it is very important, of course. I mean, someone who will do the internal management test will also have a motivation interview. So I think both are very important. And as Alexandre said, the test is all about testing your business understanding and your experience. The interview is more to test the motivation of the candidate and see what the person will be able to bring into the program. So this is absolutely very important for the admission. And in the selection process, we have alumni. So there will be 2 alumni and 1 HEC representative in the selection committee. And I think this is a very interesting approach, because the candidate will be in front of professionals. And these people have been through the program, and of course they will try to challenge the person in front of them. And in their minds they will ask themselves, is this someone who I would like to work with in a team? Is this a person who would be able to bring me something? So this is a very different approach from a more scholar approach, with the professor examining your future student. But yeah, definitely, this part of the selection process is very important. So it's important to prepare. But we have, of course, staff here who will prepare all our candidates for this meeting.
Okay, great. My next question is for Alexander. So it is, how did you hear about the HEC program? What made you choose it? And I think you kind of answered that a little bit before, but you can talk a little bit more. And what is the most important aspect for you that you've gotten out of it so far? Okay, so
how did I hear about HEC? Living in France for 15 years, it's the top business school in France. It's the top business school in Europe. So, it's obviously it's a school that we all know over here. So the second question was, why did I choose it? Yeah. Why did I choose it? So again, I was looking at 3 different institutions, and I wanted to have the French touch. I wanted somewhere that was close to my residence, because that's something for me that was important if I wanted to sort of manage a work-life balance. So that was right in between my work and my home. So the location was also important. The program was important. What kind of majors were there? The fact that it's not a new program. It's not something that a university randomly starts to get along the way of others. It's been around over 80 years, right? Yeah. So, and the alumni network was there. It's established, it's recognized, it's very strong, and it's very powerful. So all of this, and you also look at the fees. You look at the value for money at some point. It's kind of hard to know what kind of ROI you're going to get out of it. But when you compare different schools, HEC was not that expensive in the end. It was actually cheaper than other schools that I've looked into. And I thought, what I'm going to get out of it is also what I make out of it, right? So I could have selected a more expensive school that would have been farther away from my home. I would have spent less time working on my program. So to me, all of this put together, it made complete sense. It was just it was very harmonized. From when I looked at everything, HEC made complete sense. What did I get out of it? I'd say it's just changed me, period. It's changed my posture. It's changed the way that I do business. It's changed the way that I interact with people. It's changed the way that I challenge my senior management. I wouldn't have dared before. At first, when I came here, we were all joking around the more you know, the more you know, the more you're there. And people in my cohort were joking around the slogan. To us, it was a bit of marketing. It's so awfully true. It's so true that with the knowledge you intake from the classroom, but from the other participants, you feel much more confident. And when someone up there in the management team says something you disagree with, you have much better arguments. You feel much stronger about your answer. Your posture within the company, your posture with senior management changes. And that's the one thing I'll take out of it. There's tons of things that I've taken out of this program, but the one thing, it's changed me.
Okay. Thank you very much. Mary, how can someone increase their chances of being admitted to your program? If your CV is what it is, what can you really do to impress HEC?
Well, I think it's very important to think about why you want to do an Executive MBA and being able to explain your professional project. So why do you feel that you need an Executive MBA at this stage of your life? Okay, and I think that is important, to have people who are determined, okay, and convinced that they need such a program to achieve. Okay, so that is the first point. And then, of course, take it very seriously, the selection process, to answer the essays in a very serious matter, to spend some time on them, and also to prepare for the final selection interview.
Okay, great. So following up from today, we have just a few more minutes left. So if someone wants to follow up with you, how can they get in touch with you? How can they continue on with the process of application?
Well, they should go on to our site and contact our admissions department. The contact details are also on the site. They can contact either Nadia Madzarova or Sarah Drews for a first pre-selection interview. Maybe we can post that also online with access, their email addresses and their phone numbers, and they will be delighted to schedule a first meeting where the advisor will give feedback on their profile and their project in the light of the Executive MBA, and we will take it from there.
Okay, so I think that we are starting to come to the end of our live session. I want to thank you all for participating today, and thank you for taking the time.
Thank you.
And also thank you to our web audience for all of the great questions. Again, you can get in touch on our website. We're going to be posting information on how to contact HEC and continue the conversation later on. So again, thank you all for listening in, and we are going to be having more and more live events and more Access MBA events. So please stay tuned for our next live event. Thank you. Have a great, great day.
Thank you.
Thank you.